Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Bol.
So thank you all for coming today to your association. I'm going to sit down. Those chairs very kindly offered and very comfortable in one sense. In another sense, for yoga, it's not very comfortable. Right? You don't do yoga in soft cushions, do you? Do you? It's usually not. Right? You don't see. It's this day and age, of course, we're living in a different age, an age of trying to get our comforts from material adjustments, be it furniture, beds, cars, food, you name it. Everything is kind of like not so much geared towards higher purposes, generally speaking. Obviously there are exceptions to that. But in general, the trend of the day is to try to direct things more and more towards what we think is sense enjoyment. It usually ends up something different, usually suffering of some kind. Even our diseases of this day and age, because there's always disease in this world, but many of them are kind of almost byproducts of our efforts to try to make life more comfortable. You know, be it what it may, different types of processed food, which we all have probably been exposed to, unless we're born in the family of persons really serious about natural living. But usually we're exposed to it, and even if we're not directly exposed to it, we're indirectly exposed to it in the form of air and other vibrations in the environment. So more or less we're all affected by this modern effort, or let's say recent effort to try to be happy or fulfill whatever goal we think we have in this human form of life. And never satisfied, actually, as a result. We're ever changing. Nothing stays still for long in this world, whether it's the latest recorder. Oh, what a garland. Now this is where you can say nature's pleasure lies. We try to make nice smells, this, that, the other, and not always. Our modern methodology often creates horrible smells. But here we find nature providing, and if we let nature do her job, if we poison nature with chemicals and so on, of course these smells tend to not always be so there much. As naturally, if we poison ourselves with chemicals, then our natural fragrance or natural qualities will also be affected. But here we find, the rose has quite a nice fragrance, but when we come to the gardenias, they're astonishing, aren't they, gardenias? They're said to be a heavenly flower, actually. They're and everywhere in the universe there are different qualities. And on this earth planet there are mixed qualities. Some things have a little heavenly touch and some things have a little hellish touch. But gardenias certainly have a heavenly touch to them. Even after quite a while, in the heavenly planets it's said that the flowers remain ever fresh and fragrant. They can be 10 years old and they're still fragrant. And this planet, its flower also, even after drying up, it maintains its fragrance for quite a long time, doesn't it? You notice that? Some plants do. Other plants don't. But this one does. It's a very special flower. There's a few like this, gardenias. A few very special flowers on this planet, which are still, the more natural they are, the more they'll share their qualities. The same with people. The more natural we are, the more our qualities will, let's say, manifest, and we can share those qualities. They're not, we say our qualities, but if we have read the Bhagavad Gita, we'll see that there it's understood that the qualities, we may have qualities in this world. Some of them are not always considered so good, but we have good qualities. Everyone has some qualities which are appreciated, and even those which are not considered quite so good, because of their connection with this material world, the modes of nature, they become perverted reflections of their natural spiritual qualities. And all good qualities are there in the pure soul. He's endowed with all good qualities, because we are by nature spiritual. We're the jiva, souls. Jiva, what's that? I'm a little tired this morning, forgetting the verses of the Bhagavad Gita. Mamevangsa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha. That the living entities in this world are, Krishna says himself, are my parts and parcels. There we have some of the same qualities as the Supreme Being. So he's endowed with all unlimited qualities. We have limited, you can say, but we have so many wonderful qualities, many of which are not manifesting right now or perverted right now. But in natural conditions, they automatically manifest. So our desire, our endeavour is to try to create a little bit more of a natural condition, let's say, for the soul to exist in. And what is that natural condition for the soul to exist in? The soul, in this world, the soul in this material body, the person within this body, who is conscious of the goings-on of this body to some extent, and the world which we happen to be in touch with to some extent. We have consciousness, that's for sure. As long as we're in this body, then we're conscious of it. So that living entity in this material world is in a somewhat unnatural situation. Somewhat, because the material world is always changing. Nothing necessarily wrong with change, but the changes in this material world are a little bit more than just variety. You know, we only live so long in this material life, forever changing. Everything that we aspire for, all the things that we like, even these flowers, they only last so long and then they dwindle and they go back into the earth and so on. Everything in this world is called asat. Sat is spiritually eternal. The qualities of the soul are sat, chit, ananda. Sat means, you probably know, familiar. Eternal. Chit means cognizant or knowledgeable. Ananda means the full blossoming soul's expression of bliss. The nature of the soul is to be blissful. But in this material world, although we have those aspirations and endeavours are there, our endeavours all are short-term. The body gets old, usually, and of course through the practice of yoga, some of you are doing yoga, if there are many instances, even to this very day, we've met some people who are performing yoga, or have done yoga probably since childhood. We're talking more in terms of pranayama and hatha yoga in the real sense of the term, not just a part-term thing, but real serious practice, who don't seem to age very quickly, to say the least. In India it's said that there are yogis, I don't know, maybe we met them, we wouldn't know, would we? But there are said to be yogis who are hundreds of years old, but they look like fairly young men. But whatever it is, whether it's true or not, we do see in our own example persons who are sometimes very long-term, long-life practitioners, 80, 90 years old, still very, very healthy and fit, and still teaching, in fact. They're still practicing for sure. But for most people now today, especially the youngsters today, it seems like the unnatural lifestyle that we lead is causing the body to age quicker in many ways. I sometimes meet young people now, they're in their 20s and 30s, and they're already complaining about their back, or about their leg, or getting tired, immune fatigue syndromes, and various things, and not to speak of all the diseases coupled with that, all kinds of disabilities which you wouldn't think would really be there for a young person, man or woman in their 20s or 30s, but sometimes quite frequently we see that is the case. It's our natural lifestyle. We don't walk much. Some people do, but a lot of people don't walk much, and exercise is often rather artificial. It's not natural. Some of the exercises that people do, and the food, of course, which people eat, the water they drink, the air they breathe, and their exposure to so many different kinds of unnatural, so-called entertainments, television and internet, so many different things going on in this society, which all have their toll on the living entity's subtle body also, not just the material physical body, but the mind. So much mental disturbances, very common in this age. It seems like, at least, of course we can always say, well, it was there before, but it just seems to be that there's a lot more pressure on people these days, the subtlety in terms of the nature, the pace of life, the expectations, and on and on and on, so on and so forth. And so many people have resorted to taking various kinds of drugs in order to balance up their lives and to just get on with it, do what they have to do, whether it's they're overactive, they need some kind of downer, or they're too depressed, they need an upper, or whatever, something to give them confidence, something to do this, something to do. So much artificial stimulants of various kinds are there in our modern day society in most cases. And this all affects, although it may initially be some kind of seeming relief, it just increases the causes of suffering, basically, both in our own physical form and the environment around us. So it's an unnatural situation for the soul, and it's unnatural for the soul to have to experience all of these varieties of aging process and diseases and anxiety caused by other living entities and anxiety caused by the weather. All these things are actually unpalatable, unnatural for the pure soul, and we have to basically go through it. We have to tolerate it or not, but we have to bear it somehow or another. But it's not natural, as it's not natural for us to live in the water. It's natural for a fish. Fish is very happy in the water. For us, for a little while it's okay, but if it was too long, it would become very unnatural for us, especially if we're in the middle of the ocean. Very unnatural situation. So this is called asat. It's temporary. Material world is temporary, the spiritual existence is eternal. And when we become free of this bodily encasement, this bodily identification of life, one may come to a stage of Brahmabhuta, or the spiritual liberated stage of the soul, where there is no more effect of this material world. So the soul then is living in eternity. But that's not enough just to understand and even realize one's eternal nature. We want to know what is our actual position, that knowledge, what is my actual identity, where do I fit in, what am I supposed to do? Even in the material world, we're always wondering, what is my identity, what am I going to do? Kids, what am I going to do when I'm going to job, I'm going to study, what is it, what am I going to do, get married, stay single, go here, go there? We always want to know. So this desire for knowledge is very strong in all jivas. But in this material world, it's called achit, because our knowledge generally doesn't lead us to the full fulfillment of our inner quest. We're always searching still, what next, what next, what next? There's never a clear picture of what's going on, where we came from, why we're doing this, why we're doing that, what's the cause of this, what's the cause of that, where are we going, how does all this work, is there a God, is there no God? We're always questioning, but there's very little realization, let's say. Although there may be some theory there, realization is very rare for most people in this world as to their actual identity and what is the actual nature of the what is the truth, basically. What's going on? We like to know what the truth is. Tell me what the truth is. People like to know. what's going on. So there's very, unfortunately, most of our endeavours that way they don't lead us to a platform of actually realising the truth very much. Relatively, we may have some understanding, but not absolutely. And then there's bliss, Ananda. So Sat, Chit, Ananda. In this world, we call bliss, it's a reflection. Everything's a reflection, even our knowledge is a reflection of the truth. But it's all perverted. And similarly, our happiness in this world is a reflection of the pure spiritual happiness of the soul, freed from this material entanglement, or freed from birth, death, disease, and old age, freed from the modes of material nature, freed from this material encasement. And that doesn't mean that doesn't just mean the gross encasement, it means the subtle one of mind. By finishing off the material gross body, that doesn't help much, because the experiences are in the subtle body, not in gross body. Is just like machine, basically speaking. Yantaru Dani Maya, it's a machine. And we experience through our senses the perceptions of the world and so on, and the experiences through our consciousness of this machine, this particular body. We experience it on the platform of the mind. And on the platform of the mind, we have all these various pictures which we watch, and sometimes the picture is nice, and sometimes the picture is not so nice. Sometimes we feel pain, and sometimes we don't, and so on. The dualities, we experience the dualities of being in this material world on the mental plane. So even if you finish off the gross or physical body, the mental body remains, and it's the mental body of mind, intelligence that the soul travels on, actually. The mind is the vehicle which the soul travels on, basically, mind, intellect, and false ego, in the material world. And that carries us into various life forms. The nature of our mind carries us into various life forms. It's the picture that we see, and that's what the picture will be in our next birth, if we take another birth in this world. So it's and we're always trying to make the situation happy, and we do all kinds of strange things to try to get pleasure in this world, and there's very sometimes extraordinary things that people do to try to get happiness or satisfaction in the material world. But they all come, even if there is some pleasure there, they come to an end. Just now, I don't know if it's true, whether it is a gimmick or what, but someone was telling me that they just watched a video the other day of some kind of latest kick in Europe. They ski down the mountains and then to a cliff, and then when they get to the cliff, they go straight off. It's a sheer drop, maybe 1,000 or 2 feet, but they have these kind of mini kind of wings which they open up as they fly off, and their skis fly off as well at the same time, and then they kind of hover down the side of the mountain, like, I don't know, pretty fast apparently, but not too fast. And I think something, they have some parachute, last minute goes up or something, and just before they hit the ground, it doesn't always work apparently. They have video camera, at least that's what they said. I don't know what this is, but they're thinking of it. If they're not doing it, at least they're thinking this is a kick. And they have the video, one of the guys, they have a video camera on, and one of the guys lost it, he completely lost it. And it's videoed, and he's like cursing and cussing, screaming his head off, and it's all there on the video. Things that people do, I can't believe it. Bungee diving, all sorts of different things they do, risking their life and limb, so-called for pleasure, I suppose. Skiing, sporting, I mean, there's a lot of pleasure in these things up to a point, but very dangerous form of pleasure. Very dangerous. What do people just want? Sometimes people even crash their cars for fun. They steal for fun. They do all sorts of things because the soul is not satisfied. We're in an abnormal position in this world. We're trying to make it normal by various means, by healthy living and yoga and so many things in this world. But the purpose of healthy living and yoga, or trying to create a simple, peaceful society and love and care and so on and so forth, is all very well and good, and it should be there. And we are in the material world, and it's meant to be basically there. But that's not the goal of it either. The goal of all of these activities, whether it's the yoga, or whether it's search for knowledge, or whether it's a quest for happiness, or a good living style, or natural living, organic food, growing your own food, that is all very well and good, but in of itself it's still material also, and it will come to an end. temporary. So the purpose of all these things is actually to rise above the body and mind, to come to the spiritual platform. That they should be there, but in relationship to our self-realization, understand the nature of the soul. Because when we realize or understand a little bit about our action, people say, I want to be happy. Well, it's a good idea to find out who we are. We don't really know who we are, but we think with the mind and body. So all of our efforts are trying to satisfy the mind's demands or the physical demands of the body, or to diminish the... And that has to go on. I'm not saying we're just totally transcendental or callous to it, but that's not the goal. We have to deal with the body needs and the mind's demands sometimes and so on and so forth. But the goal behind it, or the spiritual objective behind it, is to utilize this body and mind according to its capacity in a way which will help us to spiritually advance. Even yoga is really meant for self-realization. Well, many of us use it for health reasons, that's also there. But ultimately it's meant for self-realization. Meant to understand that we're not this body, first of all. So most of the things we do are using this body, fair enough, we have to do that, that's the method. But we should try to utilize this body and mind for self-realization, or God-realization. And that's the purpose of our efforts to practice yoga. We also incorporate, of course, hatha yoga into our lifestyle as being the most natural form of, let's say, balance for the body and mind. Very natural. I don't personally do much, but some of the devotees here do, and some of you do. Most people understand the value of this. It can help to, keep a little bit more balance to our body and health, mind, and so on and so forth. And in that way, a little bit favourable for our actual spiritual practices. But the primary practice of which we undertake, of course, is the meditation on the sound vibration. Sound vibration is very powerful. And so with a little peaceful mind, a little bit health, it's a leisure to meditate as well. A leisure to focus our mind. When we're very disturbed, that's another aspect of the disturbance of this age of Kali, is the age where it's called the age of Kali, the age of quarrel. Another aspect is the distractions. There are numerous distractions to the mind, especially for the young people nowadays. Now they have access to internet and so many different things that, I don't know, Facebook or Feetbook. I'm on Footbook if you want to contact me. I'm not on Facebook, I'm on Footbook. Whatever, there are different things that are there today, all these ways of entangling ourselves that we think of in the material world in the name of being happy, and cause us real, usually, distress, and it costs so much money, and you get entangled, and you become sometimes, depressed or impersonal even in dealings with others. You just use the mobile to talk to your wife in the next room or something. And there's no peace. You're in the bathroom and the mobile is going off. There's no peace anywhere. You can't escape. I remember Kadamba Kanamaj was telling me one time. The spiritual master is Kadamba Kanamaj. He had his birthday the other day. And he was in Vrindavan, and he was the temple president of our Vrindavan temple for many years in India, and he said he never got any peace. Peace depends how you interpret, but to mean to say that all day and night somebody wanted to talk to him about something, always something going on. That's one of the challenges sometimes of being in management in our Hare Krishna movement or any movement. You don't get any peace. So he said one time he was in the toilet. And somebody started banging on the door. He said, Maharaj, I want to speak to you. He said, I'm in the toilet. He said, that's all right, I can speak to you even if you are in the toilet. He said, oh my God. And people, I guess we get what we've got to go through, It's hard in this age sometimes. You go away to the countryside, something happens, Something you never know, you can never tell. I just came from Christchurch, and Christchurch used to be a nice, peaceful... Some of you have been to Christchurch, I would assume. Who's been to Christchurch? quite a few of you. And it's a lovely city, as far as cities go. And it's usually quite a peaceful place. People are easy. Life's pretty okay in one sense. Of course, people still die there and they still get sick and all that. But basically, it's not a bad place. It's nice, pretty looking place and so on. And all of a sudden, boom! Half the city's knocked down. It's turmoil. So it doesn't last, even if we've got a comfort zone in this world. It doesn't last very long. Something comes along, cyclone, earthquake, tsunami, something or another, drought, war. The idea is that we realize this is not our home. We call it our home, but it's not our real home. The soul doesn't really belong in this atmosphere. So yoga, spiritual life, religion, they all have purpose. It's not just to make it comfortable in this world. So you can feel a bit comfortable in the distress, You've got pains here, right? You've got arthritis, you know what it's like. That's hell. It's I think it's the biggest disease on earth, isn't it? Arthritis. I think it is. And it's so painful, isn't it? I know, I don't think I've ever had it. I think I'd know if I'd had it. But I know many people who have, and I know it's very painful. You can tell from their experiences. And you try everything you can to try to make it comfortable, right? Medicines, soft cushions, whatever it is, try to make it comfortable. But it's tough. Most of our efforts is to try to make it comfortable in this world, a comfortable seat to sit on. This is a really nice, comfortable seat to sit on. But that means you're not feeling comfortable, And this is making you feel uncomfortable. Or you're hungry, something to eat. Relief. You're cold. Nice and warm. Relief. You're hot. Nice and cool. Relief. It's like thirsty, dying of thirst. Relief. It's like somebody of these. Little Alita just now, unfortunately she hit her eye just now. Painful for a child. It's extraordinarily painful. But then after a while mother caresses her and helps her out there. And after a while some relief comes. But there's a lot of our time is spent in relief. So spiritually also, we're trying to relieve ourselves, but not just relieve ourselves temporarily from this one or that one, debt, disease, old age, discomforts, this problem, mental problem, this thing, that thing, this perplexity and so on. Like that's always going to be there in the material world. You can't stop it. It's the nature of this world. Most of our efforts are to try to either stop it or to try to be as comfortable as you can within it or something like that. But spiritual is to try to transcend it, to try to rise above it. It's like if there's a storm. I was flying to India maybe a couple of years ago, where the plane was diverted. It took a long extra couple of hours time because there was a huge cyclone taking place over Burma, I think it was, or somewhere, Bangladesh, Burma, somewhere like that. And we were above it, so we didn't feel anything much except we had to move a bit and it was a bit bumpy. But down below, the whole place was being swept around, left, right, and centre. Thousands of people losing their lives, big waves, everything was going on. But when you're above it, you don't feel much. You may feel a bit, but not much. But similar in this material world, if we so a little bit above the demands or the material, the whole material consciousness, rise above this material consciousness, or rise above these being driven by the modes of nature, transcend them. So that's our process, not just to make it more comfortable within this world, and especially our main process, of course, it's a matter again of hearing, sound vibration, hearing the holy name Krishna. Because Krishna is to be he's transcendental to this material world. So when we hear his sound of his name, it also becomes, transcendent. When it becomes feeling of transcendence. It feels transcendent. Because we're taking shelter of the transcendent. So in the presence of the transcendent, one feels, just like in the presence of the sun, we feel the warmth of the sun. So in the presence of Krishna, we feel his qualities, transcendent. And we're not so much, overwhelmed or carried away trying to make this material world a comfortable place. Spiritual masters say, don't try to make the toilet like a palace or something. It's a toilet. Do your business and move on. So the material world, no matter how much we try, it's still the material world. They have a saying, the rat race. But I saw a sign one time, it said, even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat. You're still in the material world. You're comfortable, or whatever we may call it, for a little while. Then it's gone after a while anyway. The comfort doesn't last. Just a few minutes, whatever it may be. But it's to realize our real nature, our spiritual nature. And then all problems are in perspective. And one can truly be an instrument to at least give the opportunity to others to approach this most important path in life. And it's the same path given in all scriptures, all yogas point to it. Precious for yoga. It's not something, it's ultimately self-realization or God-realization. Purpose of yoga, meditation, religion, and so on. Philosophy also is meant to lead. Even science should be leaning that way, but generally it's not. It's usually stuck within the material framework. Quest for knowledge, quest for happiness also should be directed in this way, but because of ignorance, people are not familiar with that. They don't have any access, or they're convinced that there is no such thing, or they're satisfied with what they've got, I suppose, for some time. So we're trying in a little way to become Krishna conscious. We call it Krishna consciousness, conscious of Krishna, as people are materially conscious. We're trying to be Krishna conscious, and at the same time living in this world, utilizing this body and mind as best we can with whatever we've got in relationship with Krishna. So that our work, our family, everything, recreation, whatever we're doing in life becomes connected with Krishna. That's yoga, actually. Yoga means to connect. It means to connect with the source of Yogeshwara, Yoginam api sarvesham. I went forward to open the door. My hand went forward. The door was about half an inch away, and suddenly the door flung open on the inways. And it wasn't one of these electronic doors, what they're called, you have nowadays. An old wooden door. Shock of my life. And the force, I was already going forward because the door went forward. I flew forward. Because it's like the door went forward and I went forward. I almost fell on the floor inside the temple. I just managed to balance myself as I went forward. And I was in the temple like that. And there was a devotee there. Her name was Mandakini, a French devotee. She said, "Hare Krishna, welcome to the Hare Krishna temple. You come at the right time. It's time for prasadam." I had no idea what prasadam was. Never heard the word. Come, she said. I was kind of like, by this time I was completely bewildered. My head was spinning. I didn't know whether it was up or down or anyway. But there was this smell, incredible smell, came up the stairs because the door was closed. So when the door opened, it was like a huge wave came across me. Smell, combination of all the spices, and the incense. That I found out later they made incense in the building, totally illegally. But they had an incense factory right there in this building. Everything they did was illegal. It was an office building, and they converted it into a temple. And they were also, it was supposed to be open for public. They had people coming all the time. They were living there. No one was supposed to live there. They bashed holes in the walls. They'd done all sorts of things. A rented building. They hadn't paid the rent in 3 years. Everything was illegal. Anyway, it was unbelievable. Anyway, I didn't care about all that. We were hippies. But anyway, and all these smells were just overwhelming. Whew, couldn't believe it. It was incredible. It was like a thing I never smelled in my life. I mean, smell incense. We used to burn incense. We used to do all these things. But this was like whew, so intense, incredible. And like I was almost intoxicated and knocked over by it. And I was like swept down the stairs to the prasadam hall, which is a room about the size of this, maybe a little bit bigger. You take that wall along straight, about this size. And I didn't know what was going on. I was down there. And into this room we went, and she had a sari on, And I saw this room, there were all these people with shaved heads, seekers, a dozen men and about 10 women or something in there. And they're all there, and there they are. There's lunchtime. They're just taking their lunch. I thought, well, that's the end of one of my misconceptions about these people. They do eat. I was a little austere with eating, and we weren't into macrobiotics or anything, but it was pretty simple. And I couldn't believe it. I saw. Actually, what happened was I came in the door. There's one to be named Sananda Kumar was serving prasad, and he was sat at the side. He was Hawaiian. He had a beautiful, like moon-like face, bright, smiling face, and he was giving everyone their plates of prasadam. You know, they make them up and give them to you. You come out, pick them up, and sit down. So I came forward, and his hands just came out, and it almost like floated into my hands. This enormous plate with a stack of rice. It was like Mount Everest. Huge stack, like maximum stack of rice on the plate. And then there was a stack of chapatis on top, which was thick. It wasn't one or two. Minimum was 6 chapatis each. Minimum. That was first course. And then you took that. Then there was a bowl. A big metal bowl, 1 liter bowl, full of dal. Full. Incredible. Oh my God. I've never been, faced with so much food in my life on one sitting, And I sat down, and I didn't know what to do. Nobody spoke to me at all, actually, after that. I just sat, everyone was too busy eating. I sat down, and I just noticed everyone else around me was finishing everything off with a gusto. It was the empty plates, and they were back for more. And then they came round with more, and I was struggling like anything. Somehow or another, I was trained by my father. He said, you cannot sit down and leave anything on your plate as a child. So you're not leaving the table until you've finished everything on your plate, even if it takes you 2 hours. We soon learnt not to take anything on our plate unless we were going to eat it. That should be there. That type of training is good. So I said, I've got to eat everything. Somehow or another, I forced it down. I'd never eaten as much in my life. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't take seconds, but I forced the first down. And then I thought, wow. Actually, I went there specifically to get a Bhagavad Gita because I saw it advertised in the magazine. So then I asked if they've got a Bhagavad Gita. They said, no, we haven't got any. They'd run out or something. Well, it hadn't been printed. At that time, the big Bhagavad Gita had not even been printed, only a small one, and they'd run out of stock. So then they said, never mind, come on Sankirtan. I said, what? Come on Sankirtan. I said, what's that? It's ecstasy. It's bliss. That's all I heard. They said, it's ecstatic. Just come, give it a try. So I went out. They at the door, there's like everybody. I don't know what they were all up to, but they all went out the door, musical instruments. I had long hair down to my waist, and they all shaved up. At least the men were. The women, of course, had long hair too, but I was a little different then. We were going down Oxford. Then they went down Oxford Street, chanting. So what am I doing? What am I doing here? What's going on? People going by. Yeah, bunch of idiots. Get a job, you lazy bums. You're mad. Some people I was at the back, so I could hear it all, I didn't know it. And they weren't all singing Hare Krishna, they were some of them singing other things I didn't know. I knew the Hare Krishna mantra. So I was hearing all these comments, and I was a quite self-conscious person. I thought, oh my goodness, what am I doing here? And I got to Oxford Circus, I thought, I've got to get out. I've got to go, I don't know what. And I don't know, they look like they're into it, but I thought, this is a bit much for me, especially on the first day ever seeing them. And I thought, I'll go Oxford Circus Underground Station. And Swinburne happens to be from Sydney. He joined here instead. No, he didn't. I think he joined in London. He was in London. He was there. He was the Sanktan leader. Harinam leader, Swinburne. Some of you know Swinburne? Yeah. He came up to me and he said, here, take... I was just about to leave. He came up with a madunga. He said, here, take this. And he put the madunga over my neck. He said, hey, play it. Said, what do you mean, play it? Just like this. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, no. Yeah, it's easy. Go on, give it a try. Boom, 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 boom. And then he disappeared, and as did almost everybody else. There was just 4 of us left. I was stuck. There was one lady with a pram. There was one lady I would say was crazy. One man leading, and another man playing the cartels. I was stuck. I had the drum. I couldn't give it to anyone else. I was like at the back going boom, 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 boom. Like this. What am I doing? I gotta get out. What's happening? It was like getting more and more difficult as we traipsed our way towards Marble Arch, you know. And after about another 45 minutes, we finally reached Marble Arch, and they all came back. They all went off to distribute back to Godheads, you see. About a dozen of them. So we got to Marble Arch, and I thought, God, I've got to get out here. Swineboard turned up. I saw him. Here he is. I said, here, take your drum, and I put it back on him. You know. I said, you can keep. He said, what's going on here? He said, this sounds like a funeral procession. Because I was going boom, boom, boom. So I just gave him the drum back, and I just ran down the underground. I went back to the temple. I left my coat there. It was a miracle. I found out afterwards. This is like history almost, that your coat would still be there after 2 hours. So, anyway, it was still there. Nobody had pinched it. So I went back to the temple to get my coat, and I was going to leave. I didn't get my bag of Aikido, so I was going to leave. But just as I was leaving, someone came down the stairs, and it was Jananada. He happened to be the temple president. I didn't know who he was at that time. And he looked like an angel. I'd never seen well, I had seen one person look very similar to him before, but I'd practically never seen anyone so angelic as he was. He was just like, to me, he looked like he was floating down the stairs or something. No, actually, when I first came, somebody came at the temple room. When I came back from this chanting, someone came out the temple and they said, "Oh, you were back already? Yeah, I've got to go." "Oh, before you go," they said, "just take this." And they brought me all of fruit, prasadam. They said, "Take this fruit, prasadam." I was still kind of a bit stuffed from the lunch. You know? I thought, "It's fruit." Okay, all right. So I took this fruit and I thought, wow, what is this? It was an apple, an orange, a pear, a banana. Nothing unusual. I thought, this isn't something in this. I think they put something in it. I started tingling. My whole body started to tingle. I feel glowing. I thought, oh, maybe they put something in it. I started to question. Sometimes people used to think we were doing that, you know. And I thought, maybe it's true. Anyway, I took it, and I felt really good, and I thought, okay, I've got to go now. And then this Jananada came down the stairs, and he said, "Oh, please, could you help me for a little while?" I said, "What would you like?" "Oh, we're packing incense, and we have an order for hundreds of packets for 5:30 this afternoon." This was like 4:15. Could you please help?" So I thought, oh, I like doing things like that. So I went upstairs, and it was in the attic, right on the top. I went up there, and sure enough, there they were, big piles of loose sticks of incense and packets, spiritual sky incense, showing me how to do it. I became very expert after about 2 minutes. 5, 10, 15, 20 into the packets, seal the lid. 5, 10, 15, 20 into the because I worked in a few factories, so I got used to all this sort of stuff. And anyway, I did that for about an hour and a half, till it was finished with some other, a couple of other youngsters who were there. And then after that, somebody else was there with us, talked a little bit. After that, I thought, now I've got to go. By this time, it was 6:15, 6:30. So I went downstairs about 6 o'clock maybe. I went down the stairs, and I was just about to leave, and suddenly the door opened again. It was on the inside this time, so boom, in they came, that Sankirtan party, all poured in. "There you are, we wonder where you went to." I said, come! And they dragged me downstairs. I was like, literally taken like a tsunami down the stairs into the basement again. They couldn't get out, they couldn't escape. I was trying to get away, I couldn't get out. And they said, "Oh great, anyway, it's time for prasadam again." And again, they absolutely stuffed themselves with rice dal and chapatis yet again. And it was the leftovers. It was cold this time, and they didn't seem to mind. And again, I had to eat. It was like you had no choice. There was like this wave of of unlimited enthusiasm for prasadam for something. And it was just like unbelievable. I don't know where it was going. By this time my stomach, I think, was expanding a little bit. And it was unbelievable. Then I was just about to leave. I said, I've got to go now. They said, oh, don't go quite yet. I said, why not? They said, oh, it's arti time. I said, what's arti? They said, that's when we do the worship of the deities. I said, what are deities? They said, they're inside the temple. I said, what's the temple? No one had ever showed me the temple or anything at this point in time. All I'd seen was the corridor, the prasadam room, and the incense. So they said, come on in, come on in. So someone took me in the temple room, and it was like a long tube, upturned boat they used to call it. It had like, you know, old redwood from California, because Shyam Sundar was from California. He made the temple, and he designed it. And it was really fascinating. It was really mystical, the smell, the colours, the pictures, very mystical. And it had a blue carpet on the floor. And I sat down there. I didn't know what was going on. I was at the Asasana Prabhupada. The curtains were closed. They were doing the offering. It was like 6:40. So I sat there, and they said, wait 20 minutes, and then the ceremony will begin. So I sat there. Okay, I'll see this and see. Then I have to go. So then then I just watched the devotees coming out. I couldn't believe it. I'd never seen anything like it. I thought they were Olympic diving champions or something. They would come in. One of them came in literally like this and dived on the floor. So what he was doing, he was practicing for the Olympics or something, or maybe mistake the blue carpet to be water. But it was quite amazing. And then everything was just fascinating. I didn't know what was going on. You know, I was looking around. And then the curtains opened, and then for the first time I saw the deities of Radha Londonishwar and Jagannath Balaram and Subhadra. And sure, and it was quite astonishing. Now, I had a picture of what deities would look like, basically. I've seen many pictures, but Jagannath Baladev Subhadra completely astonished me. And these are Jagannath Baladev and Subhadra, so they were just this size exactly. So you can see they're quite extraordinary. Most people don't understand. Look at them smiling. Look at Subhadra, she's laughing her head off. If Balaram had a club, he'd whack me with it, I'm sure. Look at him, isn't he laughing? Look at him. Such a smile, I can see him without my glasses laughing. Lord Jagannath's not quite sure. But it was, and then the kirtan started, and all the devotees started jumping up and down and bouncing around, and you know, it's like boom, 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 boom. And I'm still at the back wondering, you know, quite what I'm going to do about all this. And I'm watching it all. And then someone came in with a flame. And I wasn't watching what's going on. And suddenly they almost stuck it in my nose. And then a few minutes later, someone came in with the water to put the flames, the fire out or something. I don't know what they were doing. You know. No one said anything. You know, it's like all mystical stuff. And then someone stuffs some flour up your nose, and they're waving something at everybody. And then boom, you know. These guys were. That is far out. I've never seen anything like this. This is really far out, you know. Really amazing stuff. I didn't know what to make of it all, however. But there was something there which was magnetically attractive, despite all the bizarre things. You know. There was something that was there. And I thought, okay, that was interesting. Now I got to go. And then I was just about to leave, and someone said, no, please stay. What for? And they said, and now it's Bhagavad Gita class. I thought, Bhagavad Gita, that's what I came for. I sat down. So I sat down and for 1 hour listened to Bhagavad Gita. And there was only one copy in the temple, so it wasn't, you had only one person. So I listened to it, kind of got something out of it, I think. I can't really remember, but certainly it was something interesting. And then after that I said, got to go. They said, no, just stay a little longer. I said, what's happening now? Song class. So then they had 30-minute song class, singing bhajans. I kind of hung on for that. I thought, God, it's 9 o'clock. I really got to go. My last train's at 10. You know, I had to go to the other side of London to catch my last train back to where I was coming from. So then I said, no, please, don't go right now. Still, stay a little longer. I said, what for? They said, another arti. So then I had a last arti at night. Short one, 10 minutes. Stayed for that, and I was just like, okay, now I got to go. That's the end. Is the program over now? Yes, it's over. But just one more thing, they said. I said, what's that? Prasadam. But this is special prasadam. This is the Maha. I had no idea what Maha was until they gave it to me. So they said, this is reserved for the guests and the temple president. And the pujaris. Otherwise it was reserved for the guests. So they gave me this Maha, and that was it. That actually finished me off. I don't mean physically. I was convinced by the Mahaprasad. I thought, I've got to come back again. I've never tasted anything like this in my life. Hot, steaming halava. Like you never, the first time you take halava, it was like, woof, like coming from another planet. Hot puris, round, puffed up, soft, but fully cooked puris. Tomato chutney, samosas, laddu, mahabrinjal. So many absolutely amazing preparations. I've been to Indian restaurants, Chinese restaurants, this place, that place. But this was something different. I was completely overwhelmed. All my defenses were just destroyed. All the barriers were taken down by Mahaprasad. And after that I was convinced this is what I was going to follow up on. So after that I went back to work, but I came back again whenever we could and started to practice Krishna consciousness, reading more. Eventually Bhagavad Gita came. I found some books in the various shops and purchased those in the city. And gradually got to know what devotees were, what they practiced. Started to practice it in my own life, so to speak, at work, at home. And after, I suppose, about 6 months of practice, something like that, we joined the temple. Gave my mother 2 months' notice that I was joining. But I moved back to home after the farm, and I was staying with mother and working in the hometown. Then I gave her 2 months' notice that I'll be joining the Hare Krishna temple. She didn't believe me. Didn't know what it was. And when the day came, I said, "Today, Mum, I'm joining the temple." I gave her every week. I give her 7 weeks, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, like that, 5 days. And the day came, and I went to join the temple. She wasn't very happy. My father said, "Well, he told you. His choice." So we joined the temple, and that's it. From another, our little sojourn began. And we're still on the path, and still very exciting. Challenge it every moment. We just wish we could be a little bit more deeper and a little bit more sincere in Krishna consciousness. Some or other, we're still there by the mercy of the devotees, the mercy of Krishna, the mercy of Prabhupada. And maybe one day we'll be able to do some service. One day will be some use. Other than just being in this world, occupying space, spaced out. I hope we can do something useful sooner or later. And then we started to develop a love for chanting Hare Krishna. And for going on the streets, although our first experience was a bit shaky. After that we started to understand a little bit what was going on. And Prasadam always remained ever ecstatic, and the dancing and the deities and the books and the Srila Prabhupada came to London in 1972, and at Rath Yatra in 1972 on Trafalgar Square, right on the square, we were blessed by receiving initiation from Prabhupada. Actually, I didn't receive it on the square exactly. We did the yoga on the square. But we received our initiation, or at least I did. The others, funny enough, out of the group, everyone else received their beads on the square, but I had to go back to the temple and get them in Prabhupada's room. Somehow they'd been left out of the bag. So I had to run back to the temple. Prabhupada went back to the temple after the festival. So we were very fortunate to have a little personal darshan with Prabhupada to get initiation. And from then on, we just try to do a little bit. We all have our little parts to play in life. Try to share it with others a little bit sometimes. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Prasadam time.
I gotta go now. I've gotta go.
Just wait.
Just wait. What for? Why should I wait? We're always trying to get away, Krishna's always trying to bring us home. We're always finding excuses. The nature of conditional life, the mind. Always some other alternative is there. But eventually we'll accept Krishna's hand of holding his hand out to us. Please come. Hare Krishna. Anything else?
Do you remember what Prabhupada said when you went and saw him at the darshan?
He didn't say much. I was generally quite nervous and sensitive, but it was a little unusual because on Trafalgar Square, everyone else got their beads, and that's in the story. You can read a bit about it in Rancho's book on Prabhupada, the Rising Sun or whatever it's called. But I went back to there was about 3 or 4 devotees in the temple at the time. Everyone was still on Trafalgar Square. And Pradyumna was there, Prabhupada's secretary. Prabhupada was in his room. Pradyumna was outside. No, he was in the room. I was outside. And then Pradyumna came out and said, "Okay, just wait a while. I'll ask Prabhupada when he wants to see you." So he went inside again and came out and said, "Okay, Prabhupada will see you now." So he didn't go back in. I went out alone. And I was very nervous outside. And when I went inside, I felt completely relaxed, like the nerves went away. And I paid my obeisances to Prabhupada, respects. And Prabhupada said, I can't remember the exact order, but he said, offer your obeisances properly with both hands on the floor, because I didn't have them down properly. So he said, offer your obeisances with both hands flat on the floor. So I did. And then he looked at me, and he didn't say, he didn't ask anything. He could see that I wasn't one for asking a lot of questions in those days, or one for wasting time. So he didn't say anything. Prabhupada would reciprocate exactly with each and every individual, to make you feel like you belong, to make you feel comfortable, and so on. He knew what was, right for me. He didn't say anything particular. He just took the beads. The beads were very extraordinary beads. In those days, our chanting beads were not usually made of tulsi, very rare. Some devotees had plastic beads, some had glass beads. Whatever you could get your hands on, basically. 108. I had beads which were a combination of wood and dough, and flour water. I baked them in the oven to make them hard. That's true, I baked them in the oven so they become hard. And Prabhupada chanted on those beads. Some of them were made of dough. That's all we had. We had nothing else. We had no personal property whatsoever, nothing. Not even an underwear was not ours. Everything was communal. Everything. Toothbrush, everything communal. So he chanted on those beads and gave me the beads and then told me my name and what it meant, and then gave me a piece of paper even with it written on, and then he had a little box on his desk. He said, "Here, take one of these." And he gave me a big Simply Wonderful. As I say, he knew everyone's heart. So he knew I liked Simply Wonderfuls, at least at that time. So he gave me the Simply Wonderful. And then I offered my obeisances again, with the beads in one hand and the Simply Wonderful in the other. And we didn't have bead bags in those days. And he said, "No, put them down on the table and offer your obeisances with both hands on the floor." So I did. And then I got up. After offering pranams, I picked up the beads and the Simply Wonderful and left the room graciously and exited through the door. And that was that. Nothing very, very lengthy. Nothing very kind of, you can say, philosophical or anything like that. That was it. And as I got out the door, there was one devotee there, Jananada. Someone had also come back to the temple, and he said, he knew what was going on. He said, "Did Prabhupada give you anything? Did he give you anything?" And I said, "Please, did he give you anything else?" He gave me a Simply Wonderful, he said. He coerced, I got a bit, but he coerced most of it off of me. He said, "Look, I'm a Brahmin." But I got some. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Anything else? Laying back memories.
Can you tell us anything about Prabhupada and Radha Gopinath since the
You probably know more about it than I do.
Yeah.
I know what you know, less than you know. I mean, all that I know is that Prabhupada is interesting because I wrote a book called Prabhupada in Malaysia, and that was written in that was about Prabhupada in Malaysia in May 1971, because he came from India with those days of Radha Gopinath, who'd been there at a Pandal program there in India, and he was bringing them here to install in Sydney. So they came through Malaysia. He carried them. Vegavan was Prabhupada's assistant at that time. He just joined him. And Vegavan had to carry them the days. Bali Madan and Vegavan. Bali Madan was in Malaysia. Vegavan came from India. So they came together here to Sydney. With the days, they had to carry them with them. They were so heavy they couldn't check them in. They weren't so big and heavy, but they were too heavy to check in. They had to carry them on the plane. At least Radharani came on the plane. I think Krishna was checked in. And they just sat there in Malaysia before they came here. But they'd already been, as you know, they'd already been to Sydney. It was an unusual event.
Sent back.
Yeah, they were sent back because all the time then, in those days, we were moving, glebe to this place, to that place. And some Indian gentleman had saw the devotees, came to the temple one day and said, I saw the temple or something, and saw they had no deities. He said, I will send you deities. So he took the address. And sure enough, he actually did it. He sent deities, but by that time the devotees had probably moved 3 or 4 times from here to there, sometimes living under bridges, all sorts of things. And the address was, nobody knew where the devotees were. So they sat in the docks for some time, and after a while they communicated with the man who sent them in India. They were sent back to Bombay. So again, at that time, the man met Prabhupada and explained what had happened, and Prabhupada was having this festival there, so they took the days were there for the festival, then Prabhupada personally brought them back. The man gave them to Prabhupada, and they brought them back to Sydney. And the days were installed here in Sydney. I'm sure it was a very simple installation. There were hardly any Brahmins. Prabhupada simultaneously initiated Brahmins and installed the deity, more or less, almost simultaneously. And as you know, when he was leaving, Prabhupada, normally he would say to the devotees, look after the deities nicely. But when he left here, he said to the deities, look after the devotees nicely. They don't know what they're doing. Please look after them. So I thought it was funny because the days when they came here, to me it sounded like they wanted to make sure they wanted to come here first before they made the final decision. So if you're going to emigrate somewhere, you usually go there first, check the place out, and then go back and make your decision. So they must have come here first to check it out to see if they wanted to be here. They probably heard a lot of things about Sydney and they're a bit worried. They came here first to check out that it would be okay, And then they came back. And very unusual. For the only time in ISKCON, I think. Both those instances. Very unusual. So Sydney is a very special place, it really is, in terms of Prabhupada's Leela. And next month this month now is the 40th anniversary. Unfortunately I won't be here, but most of you will probably be able to attend if you want. Take advantage of it. You'll hear lots of nectar. There'll be lots and lots and lots of nectar. I hope that dozens and not hundreds of old devotees will come to share and participate in that great event. How is Yasomati? How is he? Anyone know?
I haven't seen him. I don't know.
Is he around?
I haven't seen him.
Why I ask, you know why I asked, don't you? You know why? No? He's got cancer at the 4th stage. So they don't know if he's got much longer to live, that's why I'm asking.
Is somebody Nanda, no?
Yaso.
Whereabouts is he?
I don't know.
Yeah?
Try to find out. Try to find out.
Kalindi is his daughter.
Sorry?
Kalindi is his daughter,
Kalindi.
right? So
Uh-huh.
she's in up in November. She just put on the whole Kuriela.
Oh, she
Here
put
in
that.
January. She was the organizer for it.
Uh-huh.
And she's just had a baby.
Well, try to find out I don't know where he's at, or what is. Let Kermit told me that. I mean, I could find out from Kerma. Is Kerma in town?
We don't see much of him.
His father's still alive. I think he looked after his father. We'll ask Kerma where he is, but and we should, if he is in that situation, we should do whatever we can to serve him.
I can ask Kalindi on Facebook.
Yeah, you can also do, because I may ask Kerma, but then I may not communicate it to anyone else, or only to some. So if it is a fact, and I presume it is, Kerma's usually pretty accurate with his information, then he's probably not in very good health, although maybe he's doing something about it somewhere else, I don't know. It'd be good to find out.
I'll send her a message today and tell her
thank
that
you.
we're asking.
We can serve him in any way, we should do.
Okay. Are you in Sydney?
No, not for long, 5 days. But if he is in Sydney on Wednesday or Thursday, I will go and see him.
Okay, so you're here to Wednesday. And where do you go to after funeral?
Melbourne.
Melbourne. Okay.
Just for 3 or 4 days, then we're off to the Philippines. And Miguel's from the Philippines. And then we go to Glasgow, back to the homeland. Pommy. We're going back to Scotland. Scottish people are called pomegranates. English are pommies. Scotsmen are pomegranates. They're very tough, like granite. All the buildings are made of granite. We're going for summer in Scotland for a week. Sometimes the temperature goes very high. It sometimes goes over 10 degrees centigrade in the summer. It's very hot. People start sweating, complaining. Once it goes over 10 degrees, they all start complaining about the weather.
It's getting hotter there.
Huh? What was that?
I'll just say, where in Scotland?
A good question. Lesmahago. Probably never heard of that.
No.
It's a village. We have a little community there, a little farm community there. We'll go to Glasgow and Edinburgh and probably a few other places too, but that's where we're staying, I think. We're having a little retreat program there with some devotees. Something came from over here.
Oh, is there something about the weather? I thought it was getting hotter there with the global warming or something.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, it's warmed up the last few years, sometimes it's cold. Like this winter, they had the coldest winter on record.
Really?
Yeah. I'm unbelievable. Minus 20 degrees centigrade in Manchester. They never ever experienced that in history.
Mataji over here has a question.
Not worth asking me any questions, is it?
No, it was a sneaking out question that I already asked. Was okay.
Well, I guess it's time for the show. Jai Jagannath. Baladev and Subhadra. They're just like the ones in London, actually. Very similar. At least they look like it.
These are the ones that were in Gangadin.
Yeah, I know.